the wrestling. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's a wrestling classic here. A little false start here on this streaming app that I'm trying to use now to make some bonus episodes for YouTube and obviously Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all those other fun things. A little bit of a reunion again. I got the Jerks podcast host. I'm back in the day. Now veteran minimums host, Nick Lamb. What's going on, bro? The Lamb Show.
My guy, what is going on? It's been a while. It's been a while that we've done a podcast, but we talk.
Yeah, consistently. Yeah, the talking's not been a while, but the podcasting's been a while. And this is gonna be like the most loose, open format podcast. There's really no format. I just want to talk. It's gonna be a bonus episode. Everyone's quarantining. They're stuck at home. Everyone's complaining. They're losing their minds. The world's ending. I was like, let's give them some content. Let's talk about the world of wrestling, the world of sports. What are you up to these days? What is the Lamb Show's life after the Jerks podcast? Like, what's been going on, man? Like, what are you doing today?
Right here, man. Everything is veterans minimum. For those that don't know, I'm out of New York. So New York City has gotten it really bad with this whole coronavirus stuff. I actually left my crib, Justin, for the first time today, prior to us recording, to go into the city. I had to run some errands. I had to go get some merch. My buddy Lucas does all the shirts for me and shit. So I had to go into the city. Dude, it's a ghost town. It is.
I was gonna say, so like, how is it out there?
It's very quiet. And if you know New York City and you came into the city when it was like prime in April for Mania, and I remember we were walking around and you saw how chaotic Times Square was. I didn't go to Times Square, but I went into Manhattan just briefly. And dude, you can hear birds chirping. You can hear people's conversations on the street, like emphasized. It's just
I've seen pictures of Times Square being empty and the Vegas Strip down and stuff. But speaking about like birds chirping and you can actually hear this stuff, I've been posting those little videos on my Instagram story by Vasades. I don't know how you pronounce his name. But it's like the subway and it's like grass growing inside the subway and flowers growing in there. So I'm like, there is this weird fascination in my mind. Like when this thing started, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I understand exactly what happened in China and I've watched a bunch of videos. Maybe I'm not like, don't get me wrong. I'm not an expert, but I've done my research and I've watched the videos of what happened and how this could have been caused and how most viruses get caused and, the hosts and from an animal and all that stuff. Like I watched all that, but also like, the other side of me is like, this is almost like, it kind of is like Mother Nature striking back, like, hey guys, you used all of our resources. Now I'm going to hit you back and tell you guys to sit at home and stop, and those videos, the reason why I liked them, like the flowers growing in the subway and different areas, like, the grass is growing out of the street and stuff. So I'm like, there is a part where it's like, you know what, maybe the earth does need us to just chill out and let it do its thing. And I imagine, like, what if we did all just stay home and let the earth do its thing? And, like, I know there's been a lot of memes and jokes, like, look, I can see these mountains now because everyone stayed home for 7 days. I can, like, it's a joke, but I think, like, it's given it a chance to rest, if that makes sense.
You're right about that, where they showed a image from a satellite overlooking, I think it was either China and even Los Angeles, and they said how like the ozone layer has closed.
Yeah.
Or like it just looks cleaner than what, like, they showed something from this time last year as opposed to this year, and it's like day and night how it looks. So yeah, I mean,
because it's a global pandemic. People are being told to stay home all around the world. And if there's less cars in the street, there's less pollution. If there's less businesses running, there's less pollution and less chemical stuff flying through the air. There's just, if people aren't out there doing things and just, then I don't know. I just like, there's a fascination of like, oh, I wonder what would happen if the world was left alone for 30 days, like fully. Because don't get me wrong, even though people on lockdown, there obviously is still people outside and still people driving around. It's not like we're like forced to stay home or like you walk outside, you're gonna die. But it's also like if it's just like a little cutting back from people and people are saying things like, I hear the birds chirping, or I can see the stars again. I'm like, yeah, man, like, yeah, maybe it's us. Like maybe we actually are the problem sometimes, the human race. Like,
yeah. Look, science was not my strong suit, and I hated chemistry. But yeah, you're bringing up good points, and we are a problem. We're the ones that litter. We're the ones that burn.
We use up every resource to the extreme.
Yeah.
We found oil and we just went ham. Like,
yeah. it has been really strange to see how sports and even wrestling has adjusted to not having people out.
So yeah, let's talk about what we came here to talk about: sports and wrestling. Now,
Mhm.
because I can't say the same, right? I'm a wrestling fan, and like I went on about this yesterday on the show. I recorded as a bonus show too. Like I think as the older I got, like I became more of an arts fan when it comes to forms of entertainment. Like I like movies, I like music, I like wrestling, I like TV shows. I like that kind of entertainment rather than the sport aspect of entertainment. Like I grew up watching hockey. Obviously, I grew up watching
Canadian, eh?
basketball. Yeah, Canadian. Actually like a huge hockey fan. Grew
Yeah.
up watching basketball. A little bit of football here and there with my buddies and stuff when I would, jump in the fantasy pools during high school and whatnot. Fantasy drafts or whatever. And then I just kind of like every other sport, I kind of fell out of a little bit. Like after the Canucks lost in 2011, kind of lost that.
Mm.
But it's so like my knowledge on the sports world is a little bit more than your knowledge on science, but a little bit less. Pretty equal at the same time. Like I know obviously how every sport works and how to play the sports and who's where and the teams and all that type of stuff. But like I don't like how bad has it affected the sports world? How bad is this pandemic really? Because we know the NBA stopped; they're not finishing off their season. This is gonna be that 1 year where you're like, what? There's no NBA champion. There's no Stanley Cup champion. I mean, we've had a couple of lockouts in the NHL, so we're pretty used to that now. But so, trust me, one of the lockouts was one of the times. I think it was the 2004 lockout was when I was going from elementary school to high school and there was no hockey. Was the worst time for that to happen because like that was such a transitional year of my life. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
guess I really don't need hockey as much as I thought I did when I was a kid. But how's it going in the sports world, man? Has it for a sports fan? Like, how has it affected your day to day life?
Watching way more Netflix, playing a lot more Xbox because there's nothing else to watch. There's literally no sports going on.
Yeah,
The
because I don't
last
know that feeling. Like, oh, Monday Night Football, or like, oh, the
Yeah.
games. Like, I honestly fully forgotten that feeling. So, like, how does it? Like, it has affected me, like, very minimum. But how does it? How does it
It
affect you?
it's dude, I'm a very simple person. I like sports, I like gambling, and I like wrestling,
Yeah,
and that's really how I would describe myself. So I don't have sports, which in return I don't have gambling because I can't gamble on the sport.
yeah,
And luckily I still have wrestling. The last event that went on live sporting event was UFC, and I'm a big
yeah,
UFC fan as well. And it was in Brazil. It was Kevin Lee was fighting Charles Oliveira in Brazil, and when they first got there, it was supposed to be in front of a live audience, a regular situation where you have a card in Brazil and it's a very rabid fan base, big passionate MMA fans there. And the I don't know if it's a president or a prime minister or whatever. I know it's weird in different countries like
yeah. It's
they're
different everywhere. We have a prime
who
minister. You guys have a president.
yeah. So
Yeah,
whoever the head honcho was in
yeah,
Brazil was like, listen, the event could go on, but there's not going to be fans. And it was a very tight knit group. It was, the cornermen had to leave. They couldn't be in the same locker room with all their fighters at once. They were in separate rooms. And then it was like, all right, Justin, you're fighting next. Come into this room with your training team because you couldn't have more than 10 people in the room.
yeah,
So that was the last live sports content. And then ever since then, it's, the NFL had free agency, which was dope, and it was nice because that just got way more coverage than it usually does. Because just imagine if like every year, Justin, after Mania, there was free agency for wrestling
yeah.
and like wrestling went away for a month, right? And then
Let's
it's
talk
like,
about that though, really quickly though, because I don't mean to cut you off, but I was actually hoping that after this WrestleMania, they would probably take a month off. And I know that sounds crazy as a wrestling fan, but like I really appreciated the shows they gave us. I really appreciated they went that stretch and we're going to Mania. We're going to get Mania done because you don't know how long this is going to last. I was on that team of let's postpone it for a very long time, like postpone to June, postpone to August. But then as time went on, I'm like, we actually don't know how long this is going to last. If they would have postponed this to June and they still can't do it properly, what's the point? You're going to refund everybody again. You're going to go through all of that again. Like I understood their thought process of getting through WrestleMania. But there was a big part of me that's like, you know what? maybe they could have the blow off to all these feuds at WrestleMania and leave us on the edge. Maybe do the Raw after and then leave us on the edge. The Raw and SmackDown after, and obviously they have to do this episode of NXT. But after this week, I was like, maybe just take a break till June. Like June 1st, we're coming back. Like that's not even like a long break. Like that's like 3 weeks. We'll just be like, boom, we're coming back. The da 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 da. Like because I just feel like one, a lot of these superstars deserve the opportunity to just go home. And if they're even worried about this, just chill, like I think they did a lot for us, and we've never really gotten a break from wrestling, and mostly the WWE. And I know that's the opposite of what most wrestling fans would say, like, no, keep giving us new shows, giving them that. But I also like, as much as I've gotten used to it, these empty arena shows, they're not my favorite. So
Right.
like, what do you think about that? Do you think that like WWE should have taken a break maybe for the rest of the month?
There's a lot that you said there that I want to get to
Yeah.
about the empty arenas. Isn't it pretty ironic that a lot of these guys and girls, when they first start wrestling, basically wrestling in front of empty arenas,
No,
right?
100%. Yeah.
And then you want to get to WrestleMania. That's the granddaddy of them all. That's the Super Bowl of wrestling. I've often said the Super Bowl is the WrestleMania of football,
Yeah.
just to make those connections. But and then you bring that full circle, dude, and it's like, you're back to square one where you're not wrestling in front of 80,000 people. And I will say this, I do think that some matches from Mania benefited a lot with there
Which
not
ones?
being, like, I've been in an arena when there's a backstage brawl
Oh yeah.
or even a promo back. Dude, you can't hear shit. I'm sorry
And
if I
nobody
can't say
likes
shit.
nobody. You can. It's a
Okay.
bonus episode that's going
So,
everywhere.
but you can't hear nothing because everyone's talking. They see it as not bathroom break, but it's like, yo, what's the score to the Ranger game, or what are the Lakers doing? Like people see it as an intermission, and
Yeah.
then you can't hear. Oftentimes, when I go to live shows, I never rewatch them back, but I do go back to watch the segments that I couldn't hear.
Yeah.
So I do think Firefly Funhouse got all the hype that it got because it wasn't in
No, you're
a
100% right, because what you're saying is true. Because I did say that the reason, like the Boneyard match, the Firefly Funhouse match, and the Edge and Order match, if those are the three you're talking about, I don't
right.
even think they. Well, I don't even think any of them, besides maybe Edge and Order, would have happened the way they happened if it wasn't an empty arena show.
Yeah.
Because if there's 80,000 people in the crowd and they had to look at the screen for majority of a match, or like the Fiend never came to the ring, it was all this thing that you had to watch on the screen. I don't think those concepts were even concepts until they realized they weren't allowed to have fans. And on a personal level, and this is just sounding redundant because I'm going to say, I said it to the last thing I'm going to say to you, I'm going to say it on the next show, but I don't think that the Undertaker and AJ Styles in a wrestling match would have been as good as this Boneyard match.
Oh no, that was perfect to utilize Undertaker, and I think it was a perfect pairing with AJ, who's a guy that could just bump for him.
Yeah,
Undertaker should have been. The mistake that they've done with the Undertaker last couple of years is putting him in matches with guys that aren't good bumpers. Like,
yeah,
if you could have developed a story for him and Johnny Gargano and just have Johnny Gargano just like, if you built Undertaker to be this like villainous heel, like to the
yeah.
point where he was just like a piece of shit guy, right? And his character was like that. And then you had like the ultimate underdog, like a Daniel Bryan or a Johnny Gargano, these small guys that could bump really well. And like, yeah, that match was the best utilization of the Undertaker that you can have in 2020.
Because even watching it, like first things first, we heard. I don't know if I'm sure that took him like 8 hours to tape, and then I'm watching it. And don't get me wrong, watching it, it was great. It was absolutely amazing. But you could see even in those clips the kind of the mobility of the Undertaker today compared to the past. He
Right.
is slower. He does walk slower. He moves slower. It worked for that, but if that was a match, like I don't know, because I don't think it would be as good. And I personally, like a lot of people did not like the Boneyard match. A lot of people did not like the Firefly Funhouse. They're both really polarizing opinions on those two matches. But I like the fact that they took creative liberties with the fact that like, hey, listen, we actually don't have an audience. Like, what can we do to make this special? Instead of just having another match in front of no crowd, which is pretty much the rest of the card. okay, let's try to make it like a film. Oh, let's try to like really get inside the head of the Firefly Funhouse and Bray's idea. Let's really break it down because we're not disappointed. Who you're disappointing the fans that are watching from home. At least you're not disappointing the people that are there, right? And there is no people there, so I think it worked out. Um, but yeah, like I don't know, like I do still think going back to what we're talking about that they should like I think they could have left us with a couple of cliffhangers on Raw, leave us a couple of cliffhangers on SmackDown, and come back June 1st, just because we hear that certain people like let's look at the card as it is, okay? Roman backed out because his history with leukemia and the stress about this whole pandemic and potentially.
How'd you feel about that? Because I
I was
loved
cool
it.
with it. I was cool with it.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I like the WWE, the fact that if someone feels any sort of way about this, okay, cool. You don't have to come. It's Triple H said I think on TSN is he's like honestly it's kind of voluntarily. Like we're not telling them they have to come or not. Like they feel like they don't want to, that's fine. Go home.
I liked it that it was someone like Roman Reigns that did it because he's their top guy, whether you like him or you don't like him. It's something where, if it was Heath Slater, I don't know if we even care about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we lost
no,
Dana Brooke. Like I was gonna say, we lost Dana
right.
Brooke.
Like,
In the
no
six-pack challenge.
disrespect, but I'm talking about like mainstream appeal. He's starting to do movies and shit. He's eye candy for all people, right? Like he's a stud, and he's their best guy. Like I think I've been pro Roman Reigns for years now.
No, same
right?
here.
So I think the idea of him coming out and being like, "Yo, man, I'm not gonna do it because I got real life situations that have happened to me, and I don't want to put my family or my health in jeopardy." And I think it was magnified because it was Roman Reigns. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I had no idea about Dana Brooke.
So, I was gonna get that. So like, this Dana Brooke was supposed to be in the six-pack challenge. There's the Miz who kind of got sick, which ended up making the ladder match be a triple threat singles ladder match,
which was awesome.
Yeah, which was still a really good match. But my point is like, there are people that maybe they don't have coronavirus or they don't have like the actual situation, but like the actual virus, but there obviously is concerns because like these guys are working and they're the moment someone gets sick, okay, you're not coming and stuff like they're taking the precautions, but it's like why not just take a break?
Well, I do think a lot of reports came out afterwards, and it was kind of obvious when you were watching even Raw and SmackDown the last couple of weeks where it seems like they might have had like an old school tape day or like what NXT does.
Well, they did.
So they've kind of been on a break if you think about it.
No,
and
for sure.
I guarantee you, I think wrestlers would sign up for that for like all of April to be like, hey, look, let's get everyone to show up for Raw. Here's 4 weeks of programming.
No, that's what I think they're doing because like this Friday, I think they're going to tape the next 3 weeks of SmackDown. Just Friday, they're just going to tape it all, which they can because who's going to spoil it? There's no audience. If someone spoils it, it's internally. You got to fire somebody. So like,
right, exactly, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So that's because most of the time, back in the day when they did SmackDown tapings on Tuesday and earlier on Thursday or Friday, the thing was the audience that went there to see the live show that end up leaking the spoilers to the dirt sheets and whatnot. If there's no audience there, nobody's leaking anything. So it works. So I still think though, my main point was like the fact that they're doing these empty arena shows. You're not gaining any new fans with this. I'm telling you that right now. Like, you know what I mean? It's just your hardcore fans that are watching this. People like there's something weird about watching an empty arena show, especially for the WWE. But then there's that whole battle. Like, they're not going to stop if AEW is not going to stop. That's another thing we're going to look at. They're not going to stop. They want to keep putting out content because Vince is a stubborn. Like, I don't know what the reason. But I'm just like, I'll be honest with you. I barely watched Raw, and I'm sure there's like 2-3 good matches on there this week because everyone's like, "Oh, this match." I'm like, I just can't watch it, man. I have no intrigue in one. And also, I do believe in this. It happens to me every year, right after WrestleMania, the week after. I'm good with the Raw after and the SmackDown after, but after, like, I'm just like, I check out a little bit.
Of course, dude. That happens to me too because I think the best time to be a wrestling fan is between Rumble and Mania.
Yeah. And then leading back up to SummerSlam, I kind of get back. Usually leading up to the Money in the Bank, which is like mid-June, I start getting back into it. But that whole April and early June, I'm usually checked out anyways. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, man. Yo, you just need a break. And I think that wrestling would benefit from an off season from all types of aspects besides financially. Yeah. Where if you stopped for 2 months, then obviously you would miss out on house shows or TV tapings and
Aren't house
advertising.
shows such an old concept now, though, when I think about it?
But they do make
No, they make money off it for
they
sure. I
make
just think
money off of it, you know. And if you could get 15,000 people to show up, you're gonna do it, you know. So
I've been to a bunch of house shows locally with some. I promise you, that probably wasn't like 15,000 people.
no, but I'm talking about.
Like,
I mean house shows. Like I call them house shows when they go to Madison Square Garden on
yeah,
a
but you
Saturday.
guys probably get a bunch of people that show up in the garden when they do a house show on this coast.
They do, but that's what I'm saying though. Like they get
Yeah.
like 15,000 people in MSG.
They have
Or
like 1,500 out in like Abbotsford when they come here for a house show, and those are the ones I'm like, why are you guys even?
right, yeah.
You know,
For
like
those, you know, no disrespect to Lansing, but
there's like
you know,
500 people here. Why are we here? Like, you know?
but from a health standpoint, you let your body refresh. Like, dude, I've been watching Dark Side of the Ring,
Yeah.
and I was never a Cornette guy, but I've become
Mhm.
a Cornette guy with these. And he preaches so much about, you know, I hate when people say that it's fake or it's
It's not.
he's like, yo, these guys really get beat up. And now I think ESPN covers wrestling now,
Mhm.
and that's kind of opened up the door to that conversation. Like, you know, the dude Draws got paralyzed, bro. If it was fake, that
Yeah.
would never happen, you know? And
Well,
like guys are
let's talk about that because this is what I initially wanted you on here though. Because like, yeah, people call it fake and it's scripted, but you take most athletes and you try to put like, anyone that plays football or does MMA or anything else, anyone else is in other sports, and you try to tell them, hey, come and wrestle. They'll come in like, oh, I can do this. I'm not. Like Baron Corbin said it. I think I feel I was on an interview or something where he's like, oh, it was something on the network where he's like, I thought I was gonna come here and it was be easy. I can do leapfrog, and I did like 2, 3 of them, and I was gassed. And I'm
Yep.
like, yeah, because all these athletes that come from football background or an MMA background, they come in here and like, oh, wrestling's scripted, wrestling's fake. I can do that. They come and they're quick to learn. Oh, this is harder than it looks. And everyone said it from like top tier athletes of like Kurt Angle, who's an Olympic gold medalist, to Ronda Rousey, who's like a judo Olympic champion and MMA legend. Like, yo,
Yeah.
this is a lot harder than it seems.
Oh, without a doubt. I think one of the big reasons why you see obviously The Rock is a unique example, right? But you have seen a lot of wrestlers, whether they host SNL or they go on a, you know, the Tonight Show or the Late
Yeah.
Show, or, you know, they have guest spots in series, or even Edge talked about it, where wrestling prepares you like no other form of entertainment because it's live. If I go out there and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a meme, number one, nowadays. Number two, they're never gonna forget it. Number three, I'm gonna bury myself. Number four, the audience is gonna give you immediate reaction and thoughts on your segment. So it's like no other animal. It's
Do
like
you think
no other
that's
animal.
why, like that whole, because we've seen so many crossovers from other sports to wrestling? Do you think that's why I think a lot of the sports world that takes it a little bit more seriously now? Like that's why ESPN's like, you know what, man? Like we've seen actual athletes go try to do. Like Gronk was hosting WrestleMania, and he's the 24/7 champion right now.
Right.
But when he actually gets in the ring, like there's this fascination where like, oh, we talk about this person being such an amazing football player. He was da 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 da. But now he's in the wrestling world. Can he cut it? It's actually like it is a test. It's
It's
almost it's like when you go into acting, but the difference is there is athleticism still a part of professional wrestling. You have to be athletic.
of
And
course.
if that's a big part of it, why is it so hard for like major, super talented, successful athletes when they go there, they have a hard time? This stuff is a little bit more real than we think, you know?
I think it's because you have to interact with a live audience in a different
Mhm.
way. Like I could go out there and I could shoot threes. It's cool, but then, you know, what is it me having to sell you on what I'm selling? Me having to act.
Yeah.
It's complete. There I'm playing a sport. I'm playing a kid's game. I'm just getting paid for it.
It's organic.
It's organic. It's natural to you. So it's not where you have all these different cameras saying, well, you can't look at that camera. That's hard cam. You can't look at it.
Yeah.
You know,
And you have
like,
to work with other people and they need to trust you. It takes two to tango in wrestling. It's a
yeah.
different sort of art form.
And
Like
it's choreography, man.
yeah, and like I said, like you know, like the reason why these raws and stuff are hard for me to watch because there isn't an audience, and wrestling really does. Wrestling, out of all the sports that decided to cancel, which I understand there are reasonings behind cancel, but out of all the sports that had to cancel, professional wrestling is the one that feeds off the audience, where you can still play basketball if there really isn't an audience there. You can still play football. There's an audience. Like, the rules are the rules. Wrestling needs the audience in a lot of cases. Like, you can't do the 3-arm Hogan drop, holding the third one up if the audience isn't going wild, cheering for the guy to keep his arm up and give him that adrenaline to, like, oh, the audience is behind Hulk Hogan. He's feeling the power of the Hulkamaniacs. Like, you can have that, you know, like The Rock's promos. Austin's was a perfect example, actually. Give me a hell yeah, and they pan to the empty crowd. You can't. The audience is a part of the show when it comes to wrestling more than it is any other sport.
Yeah, and I think it's it goes back to the live audience, man. You're playing in front of a live audience. That's very different. There's no cuts, there's no edits. There's I'm not feeling well today, I'm gonna miss. It's like, no, dude, you're the opening segment. It's our biggest segment of the night.
Even in MMA, I forgot who I was talking to. Like, but I'm like, so how is it like? How do you like close your mind when you get into the octagon? Like, how do you like not think? Because I'm like, they're like, oh, it just becomes me and my opponent, and like that's it. Like, I don't even notice everything around me. I don't notice the crowd and stuff. It's just I'm focused on that fight. Like, I'm zoned in. That's the complete opposite when it comes to professional wrestling, because you need to be tuned in with the crowd to know how to react and what to do next. And that's when like the audience matters so much. And I think that's the biggest thing that's also hectic when an MMA fight just come into wrestling, is I think they realize, oh, this isn't just zoning in on this thing. I had 12 months to prepare for this fight. We're doing this every week live on television. And if we're doing something that's bad and we hear it from the crowd, like, we're supposed to know how to improvise and change this to make it better, you know?
Yeah, you ever had 10,000 people boo you?
No.
You don't know how you're gonna react to that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things that anger me. I'm very chill. I'm very laid back. But when people, no matter what the situation is, they're like, oh, I would have done this. It's like, no, you have no idea until you're in that situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have no idea. If I'm like, yo, Justin, eat this pile of horse shit over here, I'll give you $5,000.
Yeah.
You'll be like, I'm not doing that. But then in a situation where I actually show you the 5K and it's in front of you, you might be like, man, I can get a lot done with that 5,000. Butter it up. Let's go. So
butter it up.
You never know how you're gonna react to something until you're in that situation. And Shayna Baszler, I'm pretty sure it was her, man. I'm almost certain it was. She said that wrestling is harder than MMA, because also you got to remember,
it was her. I know she said that. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, they're away from their families and they're wrestling or entertaining 250, 300 times a year. So
no off season,
man.
No home games every week. You know, it's not like, oh, we're at home this week, I'm gonna stay at my house and go to, you're on the road, you're in hotels, you're sleeping in crappy beds, you're in a car driving from city to city, or you're on a flight to a tour in Europe or Australia on a 14-hour flight doing a tour, and then coming right back and doing a Monday Night Raw the moment you land, and then maybe getting a couple of days off. It's a different beast, man. And then to be on top of your game physically all the time, it's cardio. Like, you got to be on top of your cardio to not get gassed. You need to be on top of your mental state so you can speak when you go there. Like, I'm a little tired right now, I can barely speak. You can't be like that,
The best version of a guy or girl either going or coming is Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar, completely different from Ronda Rousey, where Brock made a name for it. Brock's a WWE guy.
Oh yeah.
Ronda Rousey's a UFC girl, right? Shayna Baszler is an MMA girl. Ken Shamrock, MMA. Brock went from wrestling to being heavyweight champion in the UFC to back to wrestling. So you can't say to Brock, like, oh, what you do is fake. He'll be like, all right, come on.
Yeah, and Brock won't test you.
And you know that he's a real ass kicker.
Yeah.
Bobby Lashley has fought MMA.
Alberto Del Rio,
Nakamura too. Say what you want. CM Punk with no experience going into MMA is super impressive.
I hate this idea that when it comes to Punk, because with most people that come from MMA, let's be if we're going to be honest, I mean people that had success in MMA and people that were prominently featured in the UFC. We'll use them because they're like the WWE of the MMA world. They're the
right. Yeah, they're the cream of the crop.
They're the Disney brand. They're the McDonald's of the fast food industry. They're the one when you think of MMA, like UFC, before you think of anything else, right?
The UFC has eliminated the term and the genre of MMA. Where I work out at a gym now, I've started taking jujitsu,
Yeah,
and when I tell people that I take jujitsu, they're like, "Oh, you do UFC now?" And
dude,
it's like, no,
it's like wrestling though, right? Like if you talk
yeah,
anything about wrestling, it's like, oh, you used to watch that WWF stuff, and there's like so much wrestling out. There's not, and
right,
they're still
yeah,
saying WWF. They're not even saying
yeah,
WWE.
yeah. Oh,
No,
you're a pro wrestler. You do the WWE.
yeah, yeah.
That's
You do that
you know,
WWF stuff, the Hulk
it's
Hogan
out.
stuff.
The UFC and wrestling have outgrown their genres.
Yeah. And so my point is, when someone's prominently featured in the UFC, and they come back to WWE, there's come back to wrestling, I should say. So, look, I even did it. There's a stigma like that person should be unbeatable, which in some senses it works. It works with Brock Lesnar. You believe that this guy comes like, oh, he was in the UFC, man. He was in MMA. Nobody should be able to beat him that easily. Like, let's be real here. Otherwise, it's not real. Da, 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 da. Ronda Rousey, oh, it should be really hard to beat her. Like, she needs to come in as this unstoppable force. Now, an interesting person in that type of consideration is CM Punk, because he also was there. People know who he is. Didn't do that well.
Right.
Does he come back, and is he supposed to be better all of a sudden? Or, like, do you think that's part of the reason why he doesn't want to come back? Because, like, I don't know. Like, maybe it's just over wrestling. But if you were to fantasy book a second, if you were to bring CM Punk back, do you just ignore the fact that ever happened? He's just back as the CM Punk he was in professional wrestling? Or are we supposed to also believe like he's supposed to be a little bit tougher now because he went through that system? Like, because he's not going to get the same type of treatment you think of Brock or Ronda gets, who were like champions over there and had some sort of success. You know, like I've always thought about that. I'm like, I wonder if that plays a part in the CM Punk return. You know, because there are going to be fans like, oh, how do we believe he beat this guy? Like, you got his ass whooped twice in MMA. Like, you know, the marks that like take everything too literally and forget they're wrestling. And
Yeah.
MMA are two completely different things. But how would you book that?
Well, the one thing that people need to remember about CM Punk, the biggest mistake that I think he made was all the wrestlers, all the WWE guys that have pivoted into MMA, they had a background in something.
Yeah.
Brock was a NCAA champion in wrestling. He was a legitimate wrestler, right? Even Kurt Angle, like, he's an Olympic gold medalist. He's a wrestler. So him coming into the WWE, you just knew that he was going to get acclimated from an in-ring standpoint, right? Ronda Rousey, I had not one concern about her in-ring.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, you guys are wilding. You're bugging out. She's going to be dope. You guys, I'm telling you, she's going to be awesome in the ring because that's her thing. Now, how's she going to be in front of 20,000 people cutting a promo and having to hit all these bullet points? That's completely different.
And being a
going
character.
going back to, you know, dude, the first time she came out, she couldn't stop smiling because she was a fan. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's natural, authentic reactions from someone.
Yeah.
Going back to CM Punk. If you bring back CM Punk, I think you ignore what happened.
Yeah.
Because you've done that in the past in wrestling. Like,
no, and that's how I would think. I'd be like, I just wouldn't even bring it up.
How many bad gimmicks? Like, I never think of Stone Cold as the Hollywood Blondes.
But you know the difference. But this is the thing, and now we're getting deep into a wrestling conversation here, though, because like I always think about stuff like that too. I'm like, dude, when I was younger, like I never thought about this person as I never thought of Undertaker as Mean Mark Callis. He was just the dead man. I never, you know. But I'm like, we live in such a. I'm like, as speaking as the wrestling classic, who on a daily basis deals or reads and engages and interacts with the wrestling fan base. You know, like I read their comments, I know how they think. And what the internet era has done is everybody feels like they know everything and they can enjoy things around us. So even when the WWE lies, we're like calling them out. You know what I mean? Everybody knows it. And I think that's a problem. Like we say, oh, we don't look at Stone Cold because we didn't know that realistically. Like we don't, you know, like nobody really was like, oh, I remember this guy. Like unless you were an older fan that actually was watching WCW and WWF at the time, like we didn't know. I didn't realize I was the same person until I got older. I'm like, oh my god, that guy in the long hair in the WCW that I watched that one time was Stone Cold. Like what?
What I think you do is you take. Now, CM Punk would have to sign off on this. Yeah. You do what you did with Bray Wyatt and John Cena in the Firefly Funhouse match, where you
make him face himself.
No. You bring up old gimmicks, old stories, and troll the wrestler before the crowd can.
Yeah. Let someone call him out on it and let him defend himself.
Yeah,
Then it's done.
Yeah. There was a match after his first loss in the UFC where he got taken down within 30 seconds, and then like the fight ended like 2.5 minutes into it. He was fighting Mickey Gall, who was a top prospect. Also, like another thing people don't realize, maybe because they're not
privy to MMA. Yeah,
like it might not. He got fed to the wolves right away. Like, and that kid took the fight because one, he was gonna get a marquee name. He got a big name. He got a nice paycheck. He was on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
See it. They got a lot of numbers on that. Conor McGregor was also fighting on that card, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was fighting Jose Aldo on that card. But it was a layup for someone that knows how to fight. Like, yeah, I'll take that fight. Why not? And it went the way everyone really thought it would go. Like, the idea of, oh, he got a puncher's chance. Like, all it takes is one shot. It's like, yeah, but he needs to connect. You need to really hit him on the sweet spot. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just like, punches. It's like,
and I also think people don't realize, like, there's a couple of things I always looked at. I'm like, first things first, he did it.
Yeah.
He wanted to do it and he did it. Not a lot of people can say that. They want to do something and they did it and they tried it. And even if you fail, like, he did it.
Dude, let me tell you,
I get my ass kicked to not try it at all. Like, I did it. Like, whatever. And the second thing is, there was a part of it where, because he was such a well-known name, mostly after the way he left the WWE and everything else, like CM Punk is a well-known name. He was money for UFC. Like, people, whether like there was a drawing factor. Like, oh, this wrestler, CM Punk. Like, the wrestling fans came to watch because it was CM Punk. He was a drawing factor. So maybe a lot of it, like, he got paid regardless. You know what I mean? Like, and he did it.
Yeah, and why not? Why not try it?
Yeah.
What I wanted to get to just before when you were just ranting.
Yeah.
I've started taking BJJ, and I wasn't someone, out of respect to my buddy Jared Gordon, who fights in the UFC and is also in the same training camp with CM Punk.
Yeah.
I never booed fighters. I never boo fighters. I started taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, bro, and I can't tell you how much more respect I have for fighters, because BJJ is just grappling and rolling, where I'm not worried about a head kick. I'm not worried about, a right hook coming. So for the people that boo and troll it, like, it's the age-old saying, like, go try it. Go do it yourself and then check back with me.
Same thing with wrestling, man. When people try to critique, like, actual matches, like, well, they could have done this better. I don't understand. Like, have you ever laced your boots and been in the ring, man? Like, how do we know? Maybe they had an off night. Maybe they were hungover. Like, who knows, man? Maybe they had a bad sleep. They're human beings, man. They're off their game a little bit. Who are we to? I'll judge storylines and characters till I die.
Yeah.
I can't rate matches. I don't know. I'll tell you when I think a match is really good. I'll tell you when I think a match really sucks. Personal opinion. But I can't sit there and tell you, like, the inner workings of a match or why it was bad, or that transition was very sloppy. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
One thing I do want to mention to you, and it was something I was talking about when I had a Stat Guy Greg Hyde from Cheap.
Shout out to Stat Guy Greg, man.
Yeah, awesome.
Do you remember? Did you when you talked to him? I saw you. Did you know that, like? Do you remember hanging out with him at Wally Mania last year?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, he was with us the entire time.
Yeah. I mentioned it on the show. I was like, we actually had a conversation about what wrestlers has he met, and he didn't mention any names, but he gave me a story and scenario, and they completely underwhelmed him. Like, they weren't who he thought they would be.
Yeah.
And
which I've been there too. Yeah.
And I told SGG, I was like, yo, man, it was dope. I've been a fan of yours for the longest time. It's one of the few podcasts I listen to on a weekly basis consistently. Like, look, Stone Cold Steve Austin is my favorite human in the world.
Yeah.
I don't listen to every single Stone Cold podcast. It depends on the guest. Same thing with Joe Rogan. Like, I don't listen to every single Rogan podcast, but when he has a guest, I'm like, oh, that's dope. I like that guy.
How I feel about Jericho's podcast, Austin's podcast.
Exactly.
It's come to a point where if they have the right guests, I'll listen. But they've been doing it since like 2013, so I've burnt myself out from it. Yeah.
Right. So I was telling him how I was such a big fan of his, and then and of the show, and then when I got to meet him, he was just super cool. And it's like nice when the people you look up to or
Yeah.
you appreciate their work, they're like who they
You
you thought
remember
they
though,
were.
right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I know we were a little turnt too in some of those
Yeah.
pictures. You know what's funny, man? I was looking at I know we're jumping all over the place, but I call it controlled chaos when I do podcasts because I'm everywhere, but it's controlled chaos. It was just the anniversary of when us two met.
Yeah.
Because you came down for Mania in
New
New
York,
York
Romania.
last
Yeah, yeah.
year. So, on Instagram, it shows you all the pictures. I was like,
Last year, like
yeah.
1 year ago.
I
Yeah,
was like,
dude.
these eyes are all squinty, but we had a good time. That's what that means.
I genuinely like, and people like, it's not propaganda, guys. It's not me trying to be like, pandering or promotion or whatnot. Like, they don't pay me if that helps you. Like, I don't get paid for it, but like, I will genuinely say that I do think next year, LA, Los Angeles, maybe if they're gonna do it for SummerSlam, I don't know if they're gonna postpone the one they're gonna do this year, but there is no better way to kick off your WrestleMania weekend than Wally Mania. I've only gone to two of them so far, and both times have been an experience I'll never forget. Obviously, like, I'm a little fortunate. My experiences at these events are maybe a little bit different than most average fans. I'm not saying like I'm cool or anything. I know a little bit. I know people, so it's a little bit different for me. But when the first time I went, I was on the other side, and I kind of snuck into the other side. But I was on the other side, like I was on the fan side, and it's still just as fun, man. To be there with a bunch of wrestling fans, to get turned that first. For me, it's a little different because I go there that first day and I want to have fun and get turned up and get lit and get drunk and just do the thing, right? The rest of the week, I'm trying to be a little bit more professional. Let's see how I can work. You know what I mean? But Wallimania is a blast, man. It's they do it every year at WrestleMania. I think this was supposed to be Wallimania 6 or something, and it's legit, man. Like, it's just a good vibe. And you can contest for that, man. The wrestlers just roaming around. You can meet them. They're literally just walking around the area. They're all the well-known fans that are of age, you'll probably meet there. Because most of the time you do have to be 21 and older. It's a good time, man.
But why I even brought up this whole story and why we got sidetracked for the last couple of minutes is because I had Greg on the show, and one thing I was saying was every WrestleMania becomes like, whether it's a match or it's a wrestler, it becomes that WrestleMania, right? Like when I tell you WrestleMania 30, you think of Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Right.
When the streak ending.
Yeah. When I right. One or the other.
Yeah.
When I think of WrestleMania, the one that just happened last year in New York, I think of the women. Like the women and Kofi Mania. That's the two things I think of. Now you're gonna think of this WrestleMania for two reasons. It's the most unique WrestleMania in history because there was no fans. And also you're going to think of the two, or if you consider the last man standing match a gimmick match, the gimmick Mania.
Yeah. Well, Edge's return, and then the Boneyard and the Firefly. That's all I would think about. And I guess it sucks as Drew's moment, but I feel like that needed a crowd for sure.
That definitely needed a crowd. I thought the ladder match would have done great. That was my personal favorite match, the ladder match.
That was one of my favorite matches. I also really enjoyed Seth and Owens. I think that was a bang of a match. I did not like the false finish with the DQ. Let's restart it. I was not a fan of that. And I also obviously he wouldn't have jumped off the sign in Raymond James Stadium. But I thought the jumping off the sign, even with a smaller crowd, would have been
wrestling has become so PG that when someone calls someone a bitch, or when Vince McMahon's character in the Firefly Funhouse says that's some good shit, you're like, yo.
Like, I don't want to. We did a whole episode in the Firefly Funhouse that we recorded yesterday. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to the TWC Show as a bonus episode, where you'll also be able to find this episode. But I said something when the Boneyard match was like a movie. It was like an end of a movie. Like, we didn't get to see the rest of the movie. We were at the last fighting scene, and it was special, and it was cool to see Big Evil. But I'm like, the Firefly Funhouse. I'm like, the thing about that is, I understand. One, it wasn't a match. I will agree with people that say it wasn't a match. It was a segment, an extended segment. It was like a video package that was really well done. It was an art project. But I will say, I understand some people that don't like it if they're not hardcore wrestling fans, because that was for the marks.
Yeah.
That was catered for the marks. Like, you had to know pick up on the references, and there's so many little ones. Macho Mercy, you know, Macho and Vince do commentary together. The promos from the Saturday Night Main Event days with Just Like That Behind the Cage, and you know, it was all about being the muscle man, and you know, Cena's fear. You know, I don't want to explain it again, but you know, it was based on, you know, Cena having to face his fears in his past and himself, and the things he feared the most, and you know, just all the little references, the good shit coming from the John Moxley podcast to do with Jericho, where he's like, you know, Vince would be like, "This is some good shit." Like they fit that in there. Like that shows you how in tune they are with our world and our little bubble.
Yeah.
You know, you can look, but you can't touch. A Nikki Bella reference.
That was I popped so hard for that, and then you kind of got the sense that Bray Wyatt also did because he starts laughing at the end of it.
Yeah, you know, like
I enjoyed it, man. I thought
it
was
the fist. Like we marked out to see the fist again. We love the SmackDown fist. It's something we hold very close to our heart. Like that match was for the marks. It wasn't for the casual fan tuning in trying to look for a wrestling match, or the 8-year-old kid that hasn't been watching for 10 years. It was for us fans that have been watching for countless numbers of years, who actually been watching since Cena made his debut. For us, I was like, I even popped to see old Bray Wyatt for a second. And the Hawaiian shirt, like I got excited. I'm like, oh man, like as much as I love the Fiend right now, like this guy was a G, man. That's true. His momentum was as high as ever at this point, you know? Like,
yeah.
And obviously nostalgia, like, dude.
Yeah, decked out an NWO.
The NWO came out. I'm like, oh, this is it.
Oh man, I should have had. I have an Outsider shirt, man. I have the NWO.
I got children. I'm such an NWO mark. Like
I have a Wolfpack. My bad. I have the Wolfpack NWO shirt. It's one of my prized possessions.
And Bray Wyatt acting like Bischoff, and that match was for the marks. And I think if you're a mark and you don't appreciate it, like a hardcore mark, then you just didn't understand it. But I think if you're a casual fan, you didn't get that, man. Yeah. But anyways, man, this was just a fun, random catching up bonus episode. I don't even know, just conversation because I was trying.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate. I've told you, dude. You're always, again, to break kayfabe a little bit. Yeah. I don't know if your gimmick is to be a heel, but you're the man.
Thanks, man. I'm not a heel. I don't know what I am anymore. Someone once called me the John Cena of the Instagram community.
Nah, dude, you're like you never. I take pride in things people take for granted, and you never tell me no. And a lot of times, the rare occasions that I ask you to promote something for me because it's important, you do it. And a lot of times, I'd say more times than not, you do it on your own without me asking. It's like you
do some cool shit, man. Like the stuff you did for the nurses, the Twitch live stream you did, you know, all the posties went to the nurses, and obviously like your show. I even meant to promote the one with Stat Guy Greg. If that had something to do with wrestling, you know, if it has something to do with wrestling, I'm more than happy to promote it, because I know you do the same. If I asked you, like I asked you if you want to do this, because I'm like, you know, I just want to throw out some more content. You didn't hesitate. If anything, I was the one that was having a hard time waking up this morning. So
yeah, man. The only thing I'll say to the people that are good to me is let's just agree to a time. I'll never say no. I won't do it.
Yeah.
Just because, like I said, I take pride in things people take for granted. So
no, for sure.
I appreciate that, man.
Before we take off, though, if there was one person in the sports world who's not involved in wrestling yet, whether it's MMA, football, no Gronks, no Ronda Rouseys. I don't even want to hear about like Cormier, guys that we kind of already know are interested, but someone you think that's out there. I'm actually going to take Conor McGregor off the table too, because that's an easy one, that you think would fit in the professional wrestling world and kill it. Kind of someone who's underrated and underappreciated that people haven't even thought about yet. You know, they're like, you think you've watched them do back interviews or whatever. You're like, man, this guy would cut a hell of a promo. This guy would make a great wrestler. Because I don't know if you watch it. Like, you know, the most unlikely people can do some crazy stuff. If you watch the whole Untold Story with Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone, like we've seen since the days of Mr. T and Muhammad Ali in the 70s and the 80s, we've seen athletes enter the wrestling world. From Muhammad Ali to Mr. T to, you know, Mike Tyson to just, you know, Lawrence Taylor back at WrestleMania 11. Like we have seen athletes enter the wrestling world and kill it. But in modern era, all sports off right now, wrestling's still on. These guys are bored sitting at home. If they had the opportunity to come to give them a contract and be like, hey, how would you feel about doing, you know, some sports stuff? How would you feel about doing SummerSlam? Who would you want to bring in? You're Vince McMahon.
Easily for me, without hesitation, Russell Westbrook.
Really? Why?
Because he can be such a dick to reporters and to media when you ask him the same questions. He would be such a smug heel. He'll be like a Randy Orton heel. Like my favorite Randy Orton was the Orton we just got.
Yeah.
Like the lead up to it where, he turned on his friend. He told Beth Phoenix that he loves the kids and Edge more than she does, which is like probably the worst thing you can tell a parent, that you love their kids more than they do. Like Russell Westbrook would do some shit like that, bro. He would just crap on cities that he would go to. He'd be like Elias, where Elias always like shit, heel Elias.
Yeah.
When they actually showed it in the 24 with Edge.
Supersonics?
Where he said the Supersonics that one time.
Oh no, but he made the joke in Toronto
about Kawhi leaving.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to LA like Kawhi." Like that's the kind of heel Westbrook would be like, "Yo, you're booing me. I'm giving you triple doubles, and you're booing me. Like, yo, get out of here." And also he's probably, him and LeBron are probably my two favorite athletes I've seen in basketball. Just from what the hell did I just see? And also Giannis, because I'm Greek, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah. No, that'd be interesting. I just want to pick your brain on that because, like I said, I'm not a huge I know who Russell Westbrook is. I've seen his interviews. He is funny, like his smugness. I don't know. Like, he doesn't
yeah, like
you know what I mean?
But meme, it's like,
yeah, like I don't know, man, no, like but that's a good one. That didn't even cross my mind, but that would be dope. It was a pleasure having you on. I know you got stuff to get to do. This was just a fun chat. I had an idea of what we might talk about. We talked about it a little bit, but we talked about everything else, man. It's good catching up.
Yes, sir. Yes,
we'll do this again, man. I'm going to try to just drop bonus episodes maybe once a week now, just because more content for people to listen to while they're just sitting at home and bored, and some video stuff to watch. And yeah, man.
Let's
Hope
do
you
it.
Stay safe. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Stay out of the streets because I heard New York's a little wild. And talk to you later, brother. Is there anything you want to plug it before you leave?
Man, just if you just follow me at the Lamb Show, you can find everything else I'm doing. So just
there you go. There you go.
Justin, you're the man. I appreciate it.
Get the merch, man. I don't ever know how to point on this thing. Point over.
Slide into the DMs. We'll make it work.
Oh, this way. See, I don't know. Anyways, well, see you guys next time. Ooh, yeah, dig it.